Welcome to the writer reads The Strays of Lunar One, Book 1, The Unwilling, Chapter 15, Escalation. Lewis cast a stricken look at the screen. Well, do you? Ammy asked, and her face turned coy, her voice taking on a throaty note. I mean, how do I know I can handle you if I've never seen your beast? Lewis's eyes widened. You want to see my hybrid form? He asked, and Oliver watched the girl nod. Mm-hmm, your beast. Lewis swallowed hard, and Oliver couldn't blame him. The woman was making a seduction of a simple request, and one Oliver was pretty sure did anything but appeal. The anomaly was lost on Lewis as he glanced over the screen and changed from man to beast. From Oliver's point of view, the shift was impressive for someone who'd only just been made. One minute, Lewis looked like he was asking Oliver for permission. The next, his form shuddered, and a wolfman with coal-black fur sat in his place. The soft growl that escaped him as he changed was nothing more than a grunt of effort. Oliver watched Ammy's eyes go wide with shock and her face drain of colour. One hand leapt to her mouth, and she pushed back from the screen with a surprised shriek. Well, Oliver thought, at least that isn't a fake. Poor Lewis. His friend glanced back at the screen, his ears cocked, hurt warring with predatory interest in his lupine eyes. Put it away, she cried, taking her hand from her mouth and waving at the screen as though she could wave the image away. I can't! As if I ever could! She rose out of her chair, face flushed, eyes glittering, regaining some composure as she bent forward. She banged a fist on the desk, and the monitor shook. I don't care what you used to be, she screamed. I don't even care that you look like him. You're not. You're not him. You never will be. You're just an animal in a human suit. She bent close to the screen. And I am going to report you to the authorities. She backed up a little, straightening as though she was going to leave. Oliver caught the small glance she cast to the left, and was surprised when she spun back to the screen, her voice becoming a grief-stricken growl. And then I'm going to put a contract on Mr. Oliver Landstrom, dead only, as vengeance for him murdering the man I loved. Shadows moved at the edge of the screen, and Amelia glanced up. A hand came from off camera, settling firmly on her shoulder as a very large man stepped into view. Thank you, Miss Pierce. You've done your part. Oliver watched the hurt in Lewis's face turn to alarm as the man settled himself in front of the screen, his cold dark eyes alive with satisfaction. Messrs. Landstrom and Havisham, I presume, he purred, and his mouth twitched into a smile as Oliver's expression turned from worry to alarm. Yes, Mr. Landstrom, we have your connection. The light on the monitor-mounted camera came on. We just thought it better if Mr. Havisham did not realize our hackers have more training than he does. The smile broadened as Lewis cast Oliver a look of terror, alarm, and apology, his ears flickering from interest to worry as he hunched apologetically in his seat. The man's smile faded to a small thing, blending satisfaction and curiosity. I must admit, Mr. Havisham has adapted to his wolf form more swiftly than expected. He switched his focus to Oliver. You might have something worth keeping you alive for after all. I'll have the bounty altered to reflect that. Oliver licked his lips and took a hasty sip of his limestone to wet his throat. And you are? He managed, although his voice rasped with apprehension. Again that smile, fast fading like before. The man looked to the left, and a second man stooped so he could be seen in the pickup. Hatchet-faced and steely-eyed, he took in Oliver's face and nodded before disappearing from view. Lewis whimpered, and Oliver shifted enough for his vocal cords to make the sound he needed, a short, sharp bark and rolling woof that made his beater's ears flick forward and the human return to Lewis's eyes. As his friend began the change, Oliver returned his attention to the screen. Hatchet-face was back, and the giant looked intrigued. Yes, he decided, we'd very much like you brought in, alive. The bounty will make it clear. And you are? Oliver demanded a second time. We are Ravelin X, and your DNA profile was not in Xanel's database. And why do you need us? The man's expression grew secretive. Why don't you come in and find out? We could have a fast transport in your location in. He looked up, clearly consulting his colleague. 12 to 16 hours, came the reply. Big man's eyebrows rose in askance, and Oliver heard cloth slide as Hatchet Face shrugged. It's the best I can do. Oliver glanced over at Lewis and saw his friend had shifted back to human, although his eyes still gleamed amber. The big man turned back to the screen, tapping it to get Oliver's attention. Mr. Landstrom, I am going to assume you're more of an alpha than we were led to believe, and you will be treated as such when we meet. So I am going to give you two choices. You can be at the main shuttle port to greet us when we arrive, and we'll take you through the conditions of your internship with Ravelin X. Lewis's eyes widened and his face paled. What's option two? Oliver asked, and the man turned square on to the screen. His smile faded and his face took on a stony cast. Oliver barely suppressed the growl that threatened to rumble out in answer, but he could feel his wolf sitting upright, ears pricked and alert as it studied the predator before it. The man's reply was simple. We bring you in and explain the conditions of your captivity. Hearing the note of finality in his tones, Oliver sat back in his seat, forcing himself to lounge as he studied him. What species are you? He asked, and the man's smile became a silent baring of teeth. Run and find out, lupus homines da lupari, he said, or meet me and ask again. Either way, you'll know. The screen went blank, and Lewis was out of his seat and heading for the door. Oliver slid clear and took the 3 long strides he needed to catch up. Grabbing his friend's arm was a calculated risk, but he took a firm hold of him and spun him back. We eat first, he told him, the words holding the bite of an order. Lewis pivoted with him and came to a quivering halt. Ravelin X, he whispered. I don't know them, but they terrify me. His face crumbled. And Ammy. Oliver reached out and laid his free hand on the man's other shoulder, pulling him into a hug. I know, man. I'm sorry. Lewis stiffened in his grasp, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he pressed his face against Oliver's chest and held it there, his shoulders quivering. Footsteps alerted him to Wendy's approach, as did the smell of steak cooked to just the right degree. Keeping his arm around his friend's shoulders, Oliver steered him back into the booth. Wendy took one look at them, and her eyes filled with curiosity and sympathy. Is there anything else you need? She asked, setting down their plates and cutlery. Oliver shook his head. No, he's just had some bad news, is all. Wendy nodded and pointed to a button in the wall. You changed your minds, just ring that. We do a mean apple pie. Thank you, but if you can bring us the bill. She nodded. Hate to eat and run, huh? Oliver gave her a sad smile. Not exactly, but the sooner he can get some sleep, the better. That bad, huh? Again, worry warred with sympathy, but she nodded. I'll be right back. Oliver waited until she'd moved away. Then he tapped Lewis on the shoulder and pointed at his plate. Eat. A low growl laced his words, and Lewis snapped him a look that suggested rebellion. Oliver met his gaze and shifted hybrid enough to snarl. The change was fast and left his bones aching, but Lewis was eating, and Oliver was back to being human by the time Wendy returned. She glanced from one to the other and shook her head. Did you remember to book the cottage? Oliver stopped chewing and stared at her. She held up a keyring with 2 keys. Front door, she said to one, then indicated the other. Back door. I've put 2 nights on your bill under sides. Leave it tidy, okay? She didn't ask if they wanted to book it for longer, and didn't ask for them to return the keys. The look on her face said she didn't expect to see them again, but she wasn't going to ask why. Just leave the creds in the basket, she told them, setting one on the table and putting the keys inside it. Sides, she explained, patting it, and leaned in close. Back door's open, and the local cabbie's taking a break on the porch. He'll be there when you're done. She went to turn away, then paused and looked back. Pantry's stocked and the cost is covered. From the look on her face, she wanted to ask more, but was professional enough not to. Her mouth tightened, and she gave them a swift nod before moving back to the cafe proper. Oliver turned to Lewis and found his friend staring at the space she'd filled. Eat, he repeated, giving a gentler nudge with his elbow, and Lewis started chewing again. Oliver did the same, and the two wares cleared their plates in record time. Stacking them neatly in the center of the table, Oliver lifted the basket and peered inside. The key sat neatly on top of the plates and cutlery resting on the food boxes within. Sides, Oliver murmured with a soft snort, and picked up the bill. The final number was high enough for him to raise his eyebrows, but he stacked the cred sticks together and then added an extra one. Taking the basket to the kitchen, he stuck his head inside the door and deposited the cred sticks and bill on the counter. There's extra for the basket, he told Wendy when she looked up from the grill, and she nodded, waving an acknowledgement before going back to her cooking. Oliver left, guiding Lewis out and keeping a firm grip on his bicep as they emerged onto the porch. The cab was standing on the loading bay, but its driver was nowhere in sight. Frowning, Oliver looked around, his eyes lighting on a youth leaning against the wall, whittling a forearm-long stick with a hunting knife. "Hey," he began, making it a greeting and not a demand. He indicated the cab with a tilt of his chin. "Know where the driver is?" The boy sheathed his knife and headed for the cab. "Was wondering who Wendy wanted me to collect," he said by way of greeting. "Guessed you'd like to be out of town before that shuttle came into land." Oliver stiffened. "Shuttle?" The boy jerked his chin in the direction of the farm. "Sure. Picked it up on the radar 10 minutes ago. Customs will hold it for a few hours, so we got time to get you out and tucked away." Oliver moved quickly forward, need warring with mistrust. The boy caught something of it in his face and shrugged. "You're Wolf, right? You should be able to scent it when I'm telling you a lie, and I'm not lying when I say you boys need to not be here when that shuttle shows up." "Wolf?" Oliver stared at him, but the kid tossed the stick into the front passenger seat and opened the rear doors. "You want to ride or not?" he demanded, "because I really don't have a lot of time left on my break."